Hi, and welcome to episode 12 of The Sober Connection with me, your host, Abi King. I have a guest interview today, and my guest is a fellow Brit who has made the big move over to the other side of the world and now calls Queensland in Australia her home. She is a reformed party girl who realised that the life of a binge drinker and that of a parent didn't mix well, so made the switch 7 years ago. Luckily, she got rid of the drinking, not the child. She is now the co-host of the hugely popular Sober Awkward podcast, which was the winner of the Best Wellness Podcast in Australia in 2023. She's also the author of 2 books. So my guest today is Victoria Vanstone. So hi, Vic.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
No worries. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. As I said, I've just dropped the kids off. I did go for a second coffee, which is usually an error. Always piques my anxiety a little bit and I always regret it afterwards. But apart from being slightly on edge, I'm okay.
Okay. Well, I'll try and make you feel at ease.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining me. I have followed you for a long, long time. You were one of the podcasts that I listened to in my early days of sobriety when you were with when your co-host was Lucy, and I used to go tramping up the hills listening to you guys, just cracking up at your guys' anecdotes and stories about terrible drinking choices that we make, and very, very relatable. So I'm really, really stoked to have you on as a guest today. So I wondered if you could just start off by talking about your drinking career. Obviously, you were a renowned party girl, so over in the UK, and then obviously became a parent, and then that sort of was kind of like not working so well. So if you could just talk through your drinking career and when you realised that it was maybe a bit of an issue and the steps that you took to get into sobriety, please.
Oh, that's a long story, honestly. A long and sordid tale. I grew up in Reading, which is actually a little village outside Reading in Berkshire in England. And I'm from a family who loved to party. There was always something going on at our house. And it was never any sort of negative kind of drinking. It was always celebratory, sort of a frivolous style of social drinking. I never saw anyone drinking alone. I never saw anyone drinking because they were sad. It was always as part of a social event or a party. And growing up, I never ever questioned that. That was the information that I was soaking into my brain, was like, this is what people do to have fun. This is what I need to learn to do to fit in, and this is how I'm going to be accepted, not only within my family but perhaps with making friends and keeping friends. And so that's all of the information I had coming towards me in every direction, really. I felt like alcohol was coming at me like arrows from a very, very young age. I couldn't have avoided it. They were like coming at me from every direction, whether that was cultural, environmental, social or generational. It didn't really matter. I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. There was ladette culture.
Yeah.
There was all sorts of things influencing me. My little squidgy child brain was absorbing bad information, actually, I realise now. And I had 3 older siblings as well, who were obviously all experimenting with alcohol before me. And I, wanted to grow up a little bit before my time, that coming of age period. It's unfortunate that's when alcohol kind of comes into play, is that sort of vulnerable age where, you're questioning yourself. I was sort of 12 or 13. I was probably slightly overweight and not very sure of myself, and drinking seemed to offer an answer to that. And I felt like if I could, supply the booze, steal it out of my parents' drinks cabinet and invite my mates over and swig it straight out of the bottle and get pissed, I thought, well, I've got something here. This is something I can use as a tool, like a power tool, to kind of attract friendships and be somebody cool. I just thought, well, this is a cool thing to do, and everyone's going to want to hang out with me if I can get them some free booze and a packet of Silk Cut, which is what I did. Yeah. So I was constantly stealing booze out of my parents' garage or drinks cabinet from a very young age. My parents wouldn't have condoned it. It's not like they were forcing it upon me, but I was just copying their behaviours. So when they were off at their party, I was having my little party in my bedroom with my mates, which often involved us, puking up and just being total messes, and I always blamed it on everybody else. I was quite good at sobering up, actually, if my parents told me off. I was like, no, it wasn't me. So that just led into what I would call a very normal social binge drinking habit throughout my life. In fact, for 25 years.
Yeah.
And I definitely think my drinking changed when I was about 14. I had a situation at school where I had two best mates and suddenly I turned up at school one day and they never spoke to me again. And I think that was the first time I carved a little hole in my heart that perhaps my drinking changed, whereas I was trying to fill that hole, fill that void a little bit. So that's what we do, isn't it? Like any sort of trauma, I was looking for an escape from that feeling. And that's a point in my life where I do, whenever I go to therapy, that's what comes up. It's like that moment of me walking towards my friends and them running away. And then, as I said, my mission then was to make new friends, but then I was desperate not to lose those friends. So drinking again pepped up my personality and I became this entertainer, kind of abandoning myself and my own thoughts and needs for the needs of others. And people wanted a good drinking buddy, they wanted a party animal that they could go out with, and I was kind of prepared to put everything else that I enjoyed aside and go, well, drinking is my thing and this is who I'm going to be. And that became my entire identity, and my persona growing up was like, I'm your reliable mate, you're going to have a good laugh with me, I'm your fun party animal friend. And yeah, of course that caused a lot of mishaps and red flags that were whipping me across the face for many, many years. And that led to recreational drug use, promiscuity in my teens, late teens, and I got a finger blown off, and all sorts of terrible things.
With a firework?
I blew my finger off with a firework on the Millennium Night when I was 22. Yeah, the Millennium Stump. It's all in my book. You'll have to read that. All the debauched behaviour. But a lot of my drinking and drug taking led to anxiety in my early 20s, and I ended up having a bit of a meltdown. And when I was living in Brighton, it does happen to a lot of people if you move to Brighton, actually. Yes. It's got a bit of a reputation.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, I think I had a good time, but I definitely was last man standing at the Big Beach Boutique every Friday night, pretty much. So, and I worked in pubs, and I had these kind of gregarious groups of friends, and everyone was sleeping around and snorting coke, and I was just actually doing what everyone else was doing. It didn't seem odd or out of control because I kind of diluted any of my addictions or issues into the people I surrounded myself with.
Yeah, I can 100% relate to that. I had about 18 months in Brighton, and I ended up homeless, and I think one night I even slept in a public toilet for a night because I had nowhere else to go. I was mainly just kind of couch surfing and staying with friends, but the invites they wear off after a while. People are just kind of like, you actually need to sort your life out. You can't.
Was that just booze, Abby, or were you taking drugs as well?
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
Everything, yeah.
So I was going to the Honey Club, and
So what year were you there then?
I was there 2003 to 2004.
Okay,
And then I met my Kiwi husband to be, now ex-husband, on the beach in Brighton. Don't even remember meeting him. I was off my face.
Oh my God, Brighton. I tell you what, it was fun, but I know a lot of people who hit a wall in Brighton. I mean, we interviewed Fatboy Slim. He said the same thing. And he's from Brighton.
Yeah. No, I've heard that podcast episode. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was a good time. It's always a good time until it's not, right?
Yeah, totally. It was a good time until it's not. And a lot of people I knew, it was quite debaucherous down there because there was something to do every night. And I could never say no because I was that, that was my entire identity, was to say yes to everything to keep everybody else entertained. Even if I was fully hungover in bed all day, it was like, right, hair of the dog, let's go out. We're going to go and party. Let's drink through it, drink through the headache and get on with it. And then I'd be in another blackout within 2 hours of being out. So the whole thing was actually completely pointless.
Actually just topping yourself up the whole time.
Yeah, and it took me 25 years, of course, to realise that. But hey, here I am.
Yeah.
I'm alive. I made it out the other side. But I did go travelling after. I mean, I spent a year. I had a bit of a mental breakdown in Brighton. I had to get my parents to come and pick me up. I took too much ecstasy and my brain went all over the place and I had massive anxiety, and I went home for a year. I actually didn't drink that year, which was really odd looking back at it. I always think, gosh, I actually had a year off. But my aim during that year, my get better kind of goal, was to sit in a pub and have a pint. So no matter how mentally ill I was, I blamed the drugs back then. I was like, well, it's drugs that have made me ill. So if I can sit in a pub and have a pint with my friends, that means I'm back to being me. And that was me, was a person who wanted to drink again. And that's what I did. I had a year off. And then one day I went on a medication. I went on anti-anxiety medication and antidepressants. And I sat in a pub one day. And of course, I didn't have one pint. I had 3 down the hatch in like 5 minutes. I was like, yes, I'm back. And then my drinking continued. I actually never took drugs again, but my drinking probably got heavier because all sorts of things had happened. And then I went traveling and I had no responsibilities. And if I did something terrible, I could literally just pack my bag and leave the next day and it didn't matter.
Yeah. So then, so you did all of that and then you became a parent. So ended up in Aussie from your traveling, did you end up in Aussie from that?
Yeah, so I went travelling. I was travelling for 10 years. I was working. I had bars, obviously, in Thailand. It got destroyed in the tsunami. There's a cult in there somewhere along the line. All sorts of stuff was going on. And then I went to Australia and bumped into an old friend from Luton University who I was mates with. I was only there for 3 months because, I was just on a massive bender for 3 months and never went to one lecture. But I bumped into him again 17 years later. And we were engaged really within 6 weeks of re-meeting and married within a year. And I was pregnant, pretty much on the 3 months pregnant I was at my wedding. So I think my drinking calmed a little bit then because for the first time I met someone who saw me for me rather than the party animal. And I felt myself changing a little bit. I started to kind of, want to be a bit more feminine because I was always kind of like this bullish sort of tomboy growing up. I didn't really care about how I looked, just as long as I had a good time and everyone was having fun. I didn't really take much care of myself, quite honestly. And then I met him and I felt myself feeling a little bit more worthy and a little bit better about myself and realizing that he was a really good catch and like, how am I going to keep him and not act in a way that's going to put him off? Yeah. So we got married and then I had the baby. And I remember before I got pregnant, just thinking, right, I do want to have children one day. I've always wanted to have children, no matter where I was in my drinking or drug taking. I always knew that one day I wanted to have a family. And it was weird because I just remember thinking, well, if I do have one, I'm going to carry on being me. And being me meant being a binge drinker.
Yeah.
And so that was my aim. I know it sounds absolutely stupid now, but that was my aim, was I'm going to have a baby and I'm going to be a brilliant mum. But at the weekends, it's going to be me time. My husband can look after the baby and I'm going to go out and I'm going to continue being the me that I want to be. I'm not going to let anyone stand or crawl in my path. I'm going to continue being the binge drinker that I know I want to be. Because I'd never looked outside of that. That's how you have fun. Why would I stop doing the one thing that causes me to have fun? I couldn't see. If there was a sober person in a pub having an orange squash near me, I was like, please don't even bring that person near me. What is wrong with them? I felt it was abhorrent. Why would you not drink? Drinking is what everybody does. Yeah. So it was so deeply ingrained in me that to look outside of it almost seemed ridiculous. And it's hard, when everyone you know and everyone you've grown up with is doing that. Why would I look outside of it? I've got no reason to.
Yeah.
But then I went out after the baby was born, probably after he was about 6 weeks old. And I woke up with massive anxiety, just like I had in my early 20s, that same feeling of guilt and shame. And for the first time, I had a consequence to my drinking, which was a baby crying in the room beyond my hangover, which was really confronting. Yeah. And I did that for 4 years. Because I was so adamant that I wanted to continue my habit, I tried to combine these two lives, which was being a good mum and being somebody who liked to go out and have a drink at the weekends. And sometimes it was once a week and sometimes it was once a month. But every time I went out, I couldn't stop. And everyone else in my mother's group would be sitting at the bar having one glass of wine and I'd already ordered a round of shots. It was that sort of, once one is down the hatch, I was like, right, we're out for the night. Everyone's staying out with me. Let's, go to the dodgy nightclub down the road and where's the house party? And, it just didn't stop. And I'd stumble home. My husband had to hose me down once, so I was covered in puke. And, it was just horrible. It was just horrible. But I kept trying. And I was trying to moderate, and I was trying to, because I knew the anxiety was coming back worse every single Sunday morning. And I was desperate to combine these lives for some reason. I thought, well, this is who I am. So I've got to be a mum and I've got to be this. And it was really hard because these, obviously they were crashing into each other, the mother and the party animal, every Sunday morning. And that was what was causing the panic, was that I wanted to be the mum that I knew I could be. But at the same time, I also wanted to keep part of me, the only part of me that I knew and the only part of me that I thought people liked. So I thought my entire well, actually looking back, I think my entire self-worth was based on the opinions of others.
Yeah.
And I still have traits of that now, but I think I'm more aware of it. And it's hard to see that when you're so in it.
Yeah.
But then the anxiety started to get worse and worse. And I had a brilliant idea. Well, why don't I get pregnant again and stop this? So actually I got pregnant again and had 9 months of sobriety, which is like, you know, each time I got pregnant, it was like a window into a different world, because I could function and I could, you know, go out and had an excuse not to drink. And it felt really liberating. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind doing more of this. So there was an inkling during my pregnancies of, okay, this is actually all right. I never thought of the word sober. But when you look back on my diaries of my travelling days now, me and Hamish do a live show of Sober Awkward, and we use our diaries. We read them out during the show. And one page is, I can't wait to go out tonight. Then it's hungover. And then it's, I think I need to be sober. So even in the early 2000s, I am using that word as something that I want in my life. So it's, and then it's drunk again the next night. And it's this consistent pattern of me throughout 25 years being drawn in. You know, we always say on the podcast, like, you know, you're hungover on a Sunday and then you're waving $50 at a barman at happy hour on a Thursday. That's kind of as soon as I recovered and the anxiety lessened, I was back out there and doing the only behaviour I knew how to do. So when my second baby was born, 6 weeks after she arrived, I went out and got massively pissed, even though I was desperate not to, and I was scared about getting anxiety again. And I just went to my local bar with my maternity knickers sticking out the top of my jeans, meant to have one drink, had 10, and stumbled home and woke up the next morning with the worst anxiety I've ever had. And for some reason that day, after 4 years of like having the baby and 4 years of struggling to combine these lives, I just woke up and just went, I can't do this anymore. It still makes me emotional. How many times I've told this story, it's about 1 billion, but it still makes me emotional, because just that moment of thinking, I can't do this, is where everything changed. Yeah. Everything in my entire life completely changed, because I made a conscious choice to find the answers to the questions that I'd been asking myself every Sunday morning. I was like, I'm not just going to get over this and it be okay until next time I do it. I'm actually going to seek out the answers. And I walked into the lounge. My husband was sat there with the baby and my young son. And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I cannot combine these lives. It's not working. I can't have one drink. I need help. And that has got to come. I am not solving this problem on my own. I have no solutions to it. I'm trying and failing, which I think is only so long you can try and fail at something until you're like, right, this has got to stop. And I need somebody else to step in and take over. And he just took my hand and said, right, I think it's a good idea. I'm worried too, which was quite shocking. He'd never really said that before. Yeah. I'm worried about your anxiety. It wasn't like the drinking was... You know, I wasn't drinking every day. And that's why it's really hard to pinpoint people's drinking habits and say you are this or you are that, or label someone. I've never kind of related to the word alcoholic. I didn't feel like an alcoholic. I felt like I was someone who was stuck between the pub and an AA meeting, that was falling through the gaps, that felt like they weren't worthy of help for a very long time. But that day I thought, well, fuck this. I'm going to go and get help no matter what, because I feel like there is something wrong and I need someone to tell me what that is. Yeah.
Right. And here we are 7 years later. So you had counselling, or you didn't do AA, did you? Or
no, I'd been to an AA meeting many years before. My sister is like 27 years sober through AA. And yeah, I remember when I went when I was about 23, I sat in the back row with my arms crossed, sort of saying, don't slag off my best mate. So I just wasn't ready for it. But when I decided to get sober, well, actually I decided that morning that I needed therapy. And I thought, well, I'm going to go there and I'm going to ask them to teach me how to drink well. That was my aim.
Right.
I
Yeah.
never considered being 100% sober.
Yeah.
I was like, I just need to learn how to be a better drinker. And however I can do that, then I'm willing to do it, because I just want to be able to drink well without getting anxiety. That was my plan. But very quickly, within the first meeting, she said, "Why are you here, Victoria?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm here because I'm like a binge drinking mum and like blah, 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 and it's giving me anxiety." She said, "No, why are you here?" I was like, "Well, I think I'm drinking maybe a bit too much. Why are you here?" She just kept really going on. And I just went, "I think I've got a problem with alcohol." And she went, "Yes." And that was literally within me 5 minutes walking in the door. She said, "Yes, that's why you're here." And I was like, "Oh my God, that is why I'm here." For some reason, I didn't blame the alcohol. I was blaming the anxiety. But of course, it was the alcohol causing the anxiety. It seems silly to, not have been able to see the problem or the issue, because it was just so bloody ingrained. Like, I was like, well, I've just got to learn how to be better at it. But then I realised I'm here because I've got a problem with alcohol. No matter how big or small it is or how much I'm drinking, it's having massive mental impact on my life. And that was enough for me to seek support for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all it needs to be, really, doesn't it? I mean, like you said, you don't need to label yourself as an alcoholic or a not or a this or a that. Like, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter whether you drink 5 bottles of wine a day or, one glass of wine a day. If it's causing you issues, it's causing you issues, right? So that it's enough to go and seek help. So yeah.
And it took me like quite a lot of those sessions to realize, I mean, I say this a lot, but like, it wasn't about alcohol, strangely enough. Like, it wasn't about me drinking or not drinking. It was about discovering who that person was that came before it, and then finding out who blossoms after it. That was the journey. And that took me years to comprehend, like 2 years probably, to go, oh, right, I thought this was about what drink I choose at the pub, whether I have a fizzy water or a pint of beer. And it wasn't about any of that at all. It was about me learning who I am and not being a people pleaser and not, sacrificing my own needs and, mental health for the sake of others, which is what I did for years, and learning who I am and what do I enjoy and what did I want before I started drinking when I was 12 years old. What were my dreams and my passions? Because they all just disappear. They just flitter away when you start drinking, because that becomes your passion, and it preoccupies everything that there's no space left for hobbies or, the small joys in life, which I do feel like I missed out on when I was a drinker. So, it became really interesting the longer I was sober, actually, where I started to realize what it was all about. And it sounds a bit woo-woo and weird, but it was actually about me learning to be kind to myself. And I'd been really horrible to myself for many, many years, and, abandoned my body and my mind. And it was about me coming back to myself a little bit, which does sound a bit cheesy and woo-woo, which I hate, but you know what I mean.
No, I 100% know what you mean. And I've talked about this before, and that, it's not just a case of putting down the glass or the bottle. It's so much more than that. And I thought it was just going to be really, really easy, but it's really hard to go from somebody that's been drinking from the age of 14, and now I'm 47 and I'm only just learning who I am and what I like and what I do. And, it's, I mean, there's a lot of work, and that's potentially what scares a lot of people into even making that first step, because when it's so ingrained in your identity, then, well, who am I without it? It becomes quite a scary question, doesn't it? So,
I mean, it's a lot, and I think it does take a couple of years before you understand that, and that's a shame. I think some people stop at a year and go, right, I've done a year, I still feel the same, and like, this isn't what I imagined it to be. But I remember going on a podcast even a year into sobriety, where I was already talking about it and sharing my experiences and stuff on a blog, and they were like, oh, have you hit the bit where you start questioning yourself? And I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's just about drinking and not drinking, isn't it? And I still hadn't kicked in to finding out who I was. And sometimes when people still ask, do you have any regrets in life? And I don't, because I wouldn't be here today talking about this with you if I hadn't drunk. But what you said a minute ago about like finding out who you are and not really knowing for 25 years, I do feel like that's a shame when I look back. I feel like,
Yeah.
wow, what would have actually happened, and what could I have achieved, and would I have found more joy in life if I'd actually looked for genuine joy and authentic joy rather than joy in the bottom of a, cheap bottle of Prosecco.
Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting. I don't regret or have any shame about any of my behavior because, as I said in the beginning of the podcast, I felt like I didn't have a choice because it was coming at me from every direction. But I do feel sad that there's a sense of loss or grief, perhaps, for a life that wasn't lived to its, fullest, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you do go through a bit of a grieving process as well. Grieving that old life that, some bits were really fun. I'm sure, you've got some stories where you look back. There's a post that I did on my Instagram. There's a photo of me. We'd gone out to, a bunch of us had gone out to a gig. It was only a few years ago, and I'd ended up taking some drugs, which I hadn't done for ages. But there's a photo of me, and I am gurning,
Oh,
like
God.
just terrible. And I'm mum of three, and I'm there gurning away, and somebody took a photo, and they've got me, and I've posted it, and it's hilarious. And I had such a good night that night, but the next day, the drive home, it was an hour drive home, horrendous, like absolutely terrifying. And then the next day the kids kind of trying to climb over onto you and stuff like that, and you're just like, get away. Get
Oh my
away
God, that's
from me,
awful.
But,
I don't think I'd survive that anymore. I just feel like, oh my
No.
God, I feel like if I ever took anything into my body like that, I think I'd probably just be like banging on the door of a secure unit. Let me in, I need looking after.
It was a horrendous few days, but even I get that sort of that sadness of a life lost, maybe. And especially I try not to beat myself up about what I was like as a parent when my girls were younger, and I really sort of struggle with that, just being grumpy and just really impatient with them and just snappy, and they were just being kids and they just wanted attention, and I was just like, oh, go away, but it was because I was hungover, or I was searching for that next drink, or because I was a daily drinker, so it was different to you. From you could go a while without drinking, but I was actually drinking every day, and that became my focus. Even when I dropped the kids off at their after school sports, I'd go to the off license and I'd drink a few cans of gin in the car while I was waiting for them to do their sports, and then I'd pick them up. And it's just, it kills me now to think about that, but it's just, that's the situation I was in. But I just feel really bad for that as a parent, for my kids, but I've made up for it, and it's it's cool now. Like I've got such a good relationship with them now, but it's sad.
It's sad.
Really sad.
When I hear a lot of women who are maybe more into their 50s and 60s who have given up alcohol for a period of time, and their kids have grown up to an adult age with a parent who has been an alcoholic, I often, those women that I meet, find it very, very hard to stay sober because of that guilt of raising children to adulthood whilst being under the influence. There's a lot of guilt and shame to be carried around, and they've drunk into ages where their children remember, and their children remember mummy being drunk, which is very, very difficult. But to those women, and to you, like, whenever I speak to them, I say the message, I think the message of having a parent that has overcome adversity is almost more powerful than someone who drank or not. You know what I mean? Like showing like, okay, I did have a problem and I don't know the reasons why, and I'm trying to get help and I'm pushing forward, and then to prove to them and show them that you have overcome this huge, this huge issue that isn't really anyone's fault. It's, the government have a lot of questions to answer about the role of alcohol in our society, but I think that message of, being a cycle breaker and overcoming adversity is almost stronger than never drinking in itself.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think my girls, they watched me try for 4 years to quit. It definitely wasn't a overnight success. So it took me a long time, and them seeing me really, really struggle. I'd go days, weeks without drinking and be really proud of myself, and then I'd just get the slightest trigger and then boom, I'm back to drinking again. But they saw that, and then they've seen me now and how my life has changed, and it's I think it's taught them a lot about resilience and just never giving up on something that you want. So it's definitely life lessons for them, but just that kind of niggly sort of guilt from when they were little, but
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
change it. So
You can't change it, no, unfortunately. And I think it's sometimes helpful to shove the blame somewhere else. I always say to people, as I said about the government or big alcohol industry, it's the same as, big pharma. We don't want to go into any sort of conspiracy theories or anything because I hate them, but I do think we take on the blame as the user a lot of the time. And even with gambling and alcohol, it's like drink moderately or, gamble responsibly. And they're putting the onus onto the user. Whereas really, it's shoved under our noses and shoved in our faces, whether it's on television or, down the local pub or in the cafe. Everywhere I go, booze is being practically shoved down my neck.
Yeah.
And I find it kind of like, how is anyone supposed to stop this? Because it's really, really hard. It's not like any other drug where it's kind of all a bit behind the scenes. This is literally being told that it's okay for you to do it. And interestingly enough, we had a lady from an advertising agency in London on the podcast recently, and she was saying this about this pinking drinks for mums. This is what they do now. They put rosé into cans and pink the drinks so that then they're actually, when they're given the brief from the client, it says we are aiming this drink at new mums who are struggling because the baby's crying. Like, their brief is very, very explicit that we want new mums to drink this drink. So that's what we're dealing with, and that's where the money is being shoved, is towards making us drink rather than making us stop. So it is very, very difficult. But to look outside of that, when you're in it, when you're being sober, it feels like a radical move. And if you can take the blame off yourself and just try and not drink for reasons outside of yourself, it can be quite helpful, especially if you're feeling guilty, and feeling like, oh God, what have I done? This is my fault, in those moments of cravings, because that will actually just lead you back to drinking. So sometimes shove the blame somewhere else. It can be quite helpful.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, that's terrible, isn't it? God.
It was such an interesting chat. The way that they sort of subtly introduced drinking to teens. It's all really set up. It's all really contrived and thought out. And this is the age that they're going to want to drink. So we're going to put it in a can and we're going to make it really sweet and we're going to cover up the taste of the alcohol. And it's just ways of making drinks trend and making them appealing for different people, which is really, really clever. And there's millions of dollars behind it, billions almost. So it's hard not to drink and it makes it difficult to make the right choices. But I hope with my kids, and like you're doing, perhaps because I felt like it was coming for me all my life, we have an alcohol-free house now. So I'm not stupid as to say that my kids won't drink, but I certainly feel like I'm giving them a choice, whereas I didn't have a choice. And I think that's the difference, and that's all I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to lead by example, and actually now it's a good example. So
a miracle, isn't it?
yeah. So your podcast, obviously Sober Awkward, it's been going for a while now. What was so you were doing your blog, and then how did the podcast come about with Sober Awkward? Because obviously it was with Lucy initially.
Yeah, well, I was just started writing, and I was writing for a few magazines and writing about being sober curious and alcohol-free lifestyle, because I was just so into it when I gave up drinking. I sort of came out of that therapy office after 12 weeks going, right, I never need to drink again. And it was like a massive weight off my shoulders. And I thought, right, there's going to be a lot of people out there that are like me who, were binge drinkers and are having anxiety, are questioning their intake and are wondering what to do. And I thought, well, actually, I can be that voice, and I can share my own experience in the help that, there might be people like me out there that want to stop drinking. And I started writing my blog that became popular quite quickly. And then I wrote an article for Lucy. She had a single mum's website called Beanstalk, and I'd written an article for her, and she emailed me separately and said, I loved your article and I was wondering if you wanted to meet for a cup of tea. I didn't know her. She said, I've got a daily drinking problem and I'd like to talk to someone about it. And she actually gave up drinking 3 days after meeting me, and I persuaded her to go to therapy, and I was like, right, you are me. We were like the same person. We'd grown up near each other. We had exactly the same background, like old ravers. And she just connected. And that's all she needed, was to meet someone who had a similar experience to herself, but was still quite normal. Like, I was still having a laugh. I was still having a joke. We had a lovely lunch together that day. She went out and got massively pissed afterwards and knocked her head on a marble table. But I think that was kind of her last hurrah. And then she got sober, and then it just came about that she was like, should we do a podcast together? Because she was doing one anyway. I'd started my own one with another guy who just kept never ever showing up, so I was like, this isn't working, I need to do it with someone else. And Lucy came along, and luckily we just found each other really funny. It was never really going to be a comedy podcast, but it was great coming up with the name, because we were like, well, how do we feel? What does it actually feel like to be sober? And, the word awkward was at the top of our list, because we felt like in those first few years, stepping out from being absolute wasted and being like life and soul of the party to being someone sat at the end of a bar with a fizzy water was such a massive transition for both of us. Yeah. And it felt incredibly awkward. And Lucy was a classic for never, ever going out. I used to have to literally drag her out and go, look, we've got to feel the awkward and do it anyway. And that became a bit of a motto for us, was to try and you've got to push through the awkward, because it does get easier every single social event. So we called it Sober Awkward. We recorded it in my son's bedroom when he was like 3 years old. And it just took off because people resonated with our stories. Two middle-aged women who were being honest about our drinking habits, and there wasn't anything out there like that at the time. And it just hit a nerve with a lot of people, which was great. And Lucy did it for a year, and she felt like she'd told her story. The reason she did it was to help me, get a podcast out there. And she was like, right, I want sobriety to be a part of my life, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. So she told her story in real time, which was what made the podcast so popular at the beginning, was that it was a weekly episode of Lucy going through it and the ups and downs of a newly sober person. So and Hamish jumped on board about a year later. I met him at a local boot camp, actually, and he'd done a few podcasts before, and I asked him to go sober so that we could log the journey of somebody that never had a problem. And I think his message is just as important as mine, honestly, because sobriety is a possibility for everybody, and it's just that no one considers it. And at the end of the day, alcohol is bad for you. Like, no matter how you put it, it is a class A carcinogen that causes 50 different types of cancer or some crazy stat like that. And if you just look at it as something that is bad for you, I think Hamish's story is really interesting, because he was what you'd call a normal drinker. He was never a problem drinker. He's very extrovert anyway. He never needed to drink, but he has also benefited massively from giving up alcohol as well. So we're logging the journey of someone without a problem, which has also been really fascinating.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, no, you've got, how many episodes have you got now?
Oh, wow. I don't know, 250, probably. I think maybe even more than that, maybe 300, but it's really for anyone that's ever woken up with a hangover, our podcast. That's what it's aimed at. It's like saying, look, this can be funny too, like it is a comedy podcast, but we talk about mental health, everything from, that to dopamine to, relationships when you're a drinker and all sorts of different things. Imposter syndrome, all of this stuff comes up, being a people pleaser. And we've had some incredible guests, which has really helped get our podcast out there. I mean, we had Lee Mack on, we've had Fatboy Slim, as I said, we've got some amazing ones coming on. We had Ulrika Johnson a few weeks ago. So that really helps, as you probably know, to get your voice and your message out there is when you get someone like that to hop on. So it's just been amazing. It's been a wonderful journey to do it with Hamish as well. He's such a lovely guy, and we're so proud of our podcast. But it's a lot of work trying to edit everything and trying to get it all out there and be seen and all that rubbish. But we love doing it.
Do you do it weekly?
Weekly.
It's weekly.
We have a weekly episode come out on a Monday, and on Thursday we have a retrospective episode where we look back on different topics from the past.
Okay, cool. What do you reckon? So obviously you've had some pretty amazing guests. What's been the most surprising or most powerful conversation that you've had, do you think?
Well, funnily enough, we had Ziggy Alberts on, who's an Australian singer. He's this gorgeous, he's just a lovely soul. And he had gone sober. He's kind of on and off, and he tours all around the world. He's super popular, like a folk singer. And I was thinking, well, he's only sort of 25. He's probably not going to be that knowledgeable about sobriety. He's only just started. And Hamish interviewed him. Hamish does the interviews now because I get really nervous around. Actually, my entire personality drains out of me if I'm near a famous person. It's really embarrassing. So I've actually had boundaries and passed the interviewing over to Hamish, who's absolutely bloody brilliant at it. He's a trained actor, so he totally knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And Ziggy Alberts was just coming up with these absolutely most poignant bits of advice. He was like, well, I'm sober at the moment, but I don't like to use the word forever. So I'm indefinitely sober. And we were like, oh, indefinitely. That is such a cozy term for anyone who's just about to give up drinking. It's you're doing it now. It's a bit like the AA, one day at a time. Yeah. It's it doesn't have to be forever. It just has to be for now. And that was a brilliant bit of advice. But he was really wise and really conscious, and his sobriety was new, but it felt like it was kind of meant to be for him. And for him, he works in the music industry, which is really, really hard to be sober because people are just handing you drinks in every direction. Yeah. But he was a really big surprise. His wise words were hit my soul, and I had to phone him up afterwards and go, "Oh my God, you're so young and you're so amazing." Yeah, it was probably a bit awkward.
Oh, never mind. I'm sure he appreciated it.
Oh, and I must mention, Lee Mack did a brilliant piece of advice, which was that alcohol gets all the credit for a good night out. That was my other favourite, which I always mention on another podcast. He was like, when I used to go out and I'd be out with my friends, the next day we'd wake up and we'd go, well, that was a brilliant night because we all got massively pissed. And he says now he goes to the pub with all of those mates and has a pint of black currant and fizzy water, and he still has a really good time. He has the best time because of the music, because of the people he's with, because of the environment and all these other aspects. And he realised that all throughout his drinking years, alcohol had been getting the credit for a good night. Whereas in fact, it was all the other stuff. And that's something you learn. And it does take a while when you go sober, is to learn that actually alcohol was numbing out the good stuff. It was there for an hour until you were 3 drinks in, and then it's all down the tubes, all down the toilet most of the time. Yeah. So that was a huge turning point for me when I was like, oh yes, Lee Mack, that is right. But he did call Hamish and I the pin and the cushion, and I was the cushion apparently. That's what we looked like.
Oh.
I was like, oh, thanks for that. That's a nice intro.
Yeah. I guess go back to what you said about the indefinitely sober. That's it is a good way of looking at it, because I know I've started doing a little bit of coaching, and my goal in life would be for everybody to become sober, and because I just think it's terrible, it's an awful thing. But obviously I realize that that's not realistic. It's not going to happen. But whenever I talk to clients and you mention the word forever, they just freeze. And it's that thought of giving up something forever that they've done, for 20, 30 years, however long it's been, is just absolutely terrifying. And I have noticed that they pull back, and I, could potentially lose a client because I've used that one word forever. And so indefinitely, I think maybe I'll start using that in my coaching.
Yeah, it doesn't seem so scary, does it? And sometimes I just say, just give it a year. Just give it a year, because you will see and feel all the changes. You'll look better, you'll feel better, you'll have a more positive frame of mind all the time. Everything changes when you give up drinking, and it's hard to see that in the beginning. It's hard to know it, and because you think you're going to be boring as well, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be so boring, what the hell am I going to do? And people say to me, what do you do if you don't drink? What do you do? I'm like, well, actually I do everything else. There is so much time and so much to do in this life that I've missed out on. And it's like making up for lost time. I have so much energy for other things. I did pottery for when I gave up drinking. I started exercising, which I hadn't really done before, and found all my other passions that had been flushed down the toilet with some dodgy tequila. So it's about finding out who you are and what you enjoy, and that can be a lot for people to take on mentally when they first get sober, because you don't know. And you have to try loads of new hobbies, and that's what's exciting about it, is because you can go, actually, well, I'm going to go and try a weird dance class today to see if I enjoy that. And it just opens up so much space and time for you. You have this preoccupation for years, don't you? I'm preoccupied with where my next drink is coming from, who's going to the party, what it's going to be like. And it was a massive part of my brain. Probably 95% was based around my drinking habit, even though I wasn't a daily drinker. And, understanding that there was another life out of it was probably one of the most, pivotal moments in my sobriety. I was like, oh, okay, there are people out there that don't drink, and there are people that do other stuff and interesting stuff, and that I've discovered I was really creative, and I started writing. I was like, I didn't even know I had this in me. I had blocked all my creativity for years.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? So you, and I think as well, like, you said before, if you'd see a sober person in the pub, you'd just be like, get away from me. I was exactly the same. I've said it before, like I actually didn't trust people that didn't drink.
No, me neither. Isn't it ridiculous?
Ridiculous.
It is. It's embarrassing. I used to say that. I was like, oh, I don't trust anyone that doesn't drink. Like, what's wrong with them? And my mum would still say that, honestly. She would still say that.
Yeah. So your parents still drink as they always have, or?
Yeah. My mum says it's not a good night if you can't remember it. So she wants to not remember the night. That is. I mean, my parents never suffered from anxiety. They're the hosts with the most, chicken liver pate on biscuits are served as you enter the door with a glass of cheap sparkling wine. They're 87 and 84. I'm not going to change them.
No.
I would say they probably drink too much, but I can't change them. This is my journey, and I've had to do what I had to do, and it is probably a bit confronting for them to see me kind of go against the grain. But I think they're very proud at the same time. Like, they could see, I had anxiety, I had massive anxiety, I had mental repercussions from my drinking habit, and they don't, and that's the difference.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So let's talk about your book. So you've recently released your second book. So your first one, 1,000 Wasted Sundays, that was when you were sort of, well, talk us through this. Talk us through it.
I started writing it on the day I gave up drinking, because I felt like I was the only person in the whole world who had stopped drinking before they were an alcoholic. So, because I didn't think people stopped, I thought you just carried on. I didn't realise that you could stop. I thought you had to get bad with it and be, on a park bench clutching a bottle of Jack Daniels to be deserving of any sort of support or worthy of any intervention. And so I thought, gosh, this is actually, I literally feel like I didn't know that the Sober Curious movement even existed. I was on my own in my bedroom, tapping away at my computer going, I feel like I'm the only person that has ever done this. It was quite an isolating feeling. It wasn't liberating. It felt like, oh my God, like this is scary, because I feel like I'm treading a totally new path. But of course, and actually I hadn't told anyone about my sobriety. I kept it a secret for 18 months, which I don't recommend doing, but I actually wasn't ready to talk to anybody about it outside of my husband and my children, which they were too young to even know what was going on. But I just wasn't ready, because I felt like my elbow was going to be twisted and people were going to go, what's wrong with you? Like, that's not who we know. And actually I carried a beer with me when I went out, like a real beer. I held on to one like it was a kind of lifeline to who I once was. And after 18 months, I went to a library and a lady said, you might want to read this. I said, have you got any books about alcohol? And she gave me Sober Curious by Ruby Warrington. And it wasn't so much the book that I resonated with, but it was that term. I was like, okay, right, well, there's something beyond alcoholism which I don't know about. And it felt like a warm hug. I was like, okay, Sober Curious, somebody questioning their alcohol intake. That is who I am. And before that, I'd started writing a diary, like a daily kind of rundown of how I was feeling along with my past. I started to understand, after going to therapy for so long, that my past played a role in my drinking, which I'd never even considered. And I started to just write it all down. I sat at my computer. My husband came in and said, what are you doing? I said, I think I'm writing a book. He was like, okay, then I'll leave you to it. I was like, okay. And I just plodded away with it.
He's a patient man.
Yeah, very patient. He has to be.
What a keeper.
Yeah. And I kind of just plodded away at it until it was finished. And then I sat for years. I mean, it took me probably 4 years to write and then 2 years to get a publisher. I emailed it probably 2,000 emails to various agents and publishers all over the world because I felt like I had something and I knew I could make people laugh. And that's what I wanted to do. I want to say, look, here is my message, which is what I do with everything I do. It's got a massive dollop of humour, and I'm looking outside of my shame and saying, look, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is what happened to me. And if that helps someone else, then that's my job, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that came out last January 2024, 1,000 Wasted Sundays, that's called. And it's a comedy memoir of, it flips between me becoming a mum and my early drinking days. And the two meet in the middle where the mum and the party girl collide and something has to be done. And the trajectory of sobriety from that point on. But yeah, it's a funny book. Like, there's some lines in it now where I look back and go, oh my God, why did I write that? I'm sure all writers feel the same. You think it's really funny in the moment. And obviously you don't think anyone's going to ever read it. So I was brutally honest about all of my promiscuity and just all of the awful things that happened. And I can't actually read it now because I do get a bit cringy. I'm like, why? No one needs to know that I slept with a weird Argentinian with a mullet and all of these awful things that I did. Like, it gets worse than that. That was like the most minor thing, but it gets quite personal. I just hope my children never read it one day.
Just be like, just read the one about parenting instead.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you've done that one, and then obviously, because you took a gap year with your kids, is that?
Yeah, so we went away last year. We went away for 7 months around the world. We took the kids out, and I was finishing the other book, and I had to say to the publishers, like, is it okay if I do it on the road? Which was actually brilliant because, you know, we had a lot of time on lovely beaches, and my husband took the kids away and I could have proper writing days, which was really lovely. But writing when you got kids getting up and going to school every day and all the stuff that goes on at home can be really, really hard. But I did finish it on our trip, and we had a lovely, no vices, no devices, 7 months travelling. We went to America and we drove to Greece from London, and the kids went to school in Thailand for 3 months. And we just had this huge, amazing experience. And, you know, it's weird being home now, but we've been so busy ever since we got back. Like, you kind of hit the ground running because then the second book came out and it's just all go again. But yeah, it was a lovely time, and it was lovely to connect with each other without there being the distraction of, you know, phones and computers and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, I saw lots of your stories and on Instagram and stuff, and you'd be going off for a, what did you call them? An angry walk?
Oh yeah, I still had, I mean, it's a shit show, different place, isn't it? Same shit, different location when you're travelling with 3 kids. I mean, I could have posted all the lovely beach pictures, but I thought it's much more entertaining if you see me being grumpy on a beach, trying to get away from everybody. That's the reality. I mean, that is the reality of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good days, bad days being a mum.
Yeah.
And that's actually what the second book is based upon, is a year of me trying and failing to be a better parent.
Yeah. But you're I mean you're hands down being a better parent just because you don't drink, so you know.
Totally. Yes, that's just one thing I've got ticked off the list, and it means I'm conscious to, you know, witness my failures and my successes, which, you know, I couldn't be prouder of. But yeah, I mean, it's good days, bad days being a mum, and I do find it very difficult a lot of the time. I'm not going to lie about it, but I keep trying and I forge forward no matter what. And I think my second book is based around always coming back. There's a story at the beginning where my parents left me by the side of a road when I was about 6 years old, me and my sister, and they drove like for an hour in the other direction thinking that we were hiding in the back of the car. And at the beginning of the book, I say, look, this isn't about perfect parenting. It's about always coming back. And I knew that day that my parents were coming back, that they would always pick me up no matter what. I stood firm, you know, with knowing that they were about to drive up and jump out of the car and realise that they'd forgotten about us. And I think that's, you know, with sobriety and with parenting, somehow we always come back. And I think as long as you keep trying and trusting your instinct and, you know, all of those things, it just means that you are always, you know, you're always trying. That's all you can do. Yeah,
definitely.
Oh, that's called Mumming, by the way. Mumming, that book.
Mumming.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to read it. I haven't read it yet, but I was gonna buy it. I think it's how old are your kids? Your kids are a bit younger than mine.
Mine are 6 6, 9 and 13. I had to think for a moment. It changes suddenly, doesn't it? They all have their birthdays in the same month, so it's like up a year every time. To try and remember. But one of them's been homesick all week, so I've just been at home all week as well. But it's quite cosy when they're sick. You can snuggle on the couch and watch movies. It's been quite nice.
No, it is nice, definitely.
How old are your kids?
They are 17, 16 and 14.
Okay,
so
right.
Three girls, 3 hormonal teenage girls. But actually, we're really close, and we've got a beautiful relationship. So I'm
great.
I thought when I had three little girls, I thought about me as a teenager, and I was just like, holy shit, I'm in for it. But it's actually okay. So I think the last few years has brought us closer. We've been through obviously my sobriety journey, and then my separation with their dad, and it's just it's worked out really beautifully. So they're close to me, and they're close to their dad, and so it's good. So
Lucy's kids were probably about the same age when she gave up drinking. She's got 2 girls, and their drinking changed when they were the kind of party girls, and their drinking changed too when she gave up drinking. So it does have an influence later on as well. It doesn't matter when you do it. It definitely has a massive influence.
Yeah, well, like you said, if there's no alcohol in the house, I mean, I always used to drink my mum and dad's Baileys because you couldn't see how much was in it.
Yeah, horrid.
They didn't. I mean, obviously they knew that we were doing it, or filling up the vodka with water. And my mum and dad weren't really heavy drinkers at all. They just used to. I just remember. The only story I remember of them drinking was that they went to their friend's house, and my mum or my mum's friend laughed so much that they peed their pants, and I thought that was hilarious, and I thought that was what you did. That's what you did when
I peed my pants every Friday night for about 25 years, quite honestly.
I just do now because I've had 3 kids, I think.
Yeah. Let's just accept that everybody pees their pants more often than they'd like to admit.
We need to just accept it. But oh no, that's awesome. So obviously, writing your books, and that wouldn't have happened potentially if you hadn't have got sober. So
no, definitely not.
Your life as getting sober, how has it changed? Obviously, you've got the podcast. It's changed amazingly, hasn't it? So
it's just unbelievable. I just can't. I just can't even comprehend how incredible it's been. I've written 2 books that have been published by. I just cannot understand it. I mean, I'm sitting here, right? I don't want. It sounds wank, but I'm sitting here. There's a painting that somebody painted of me. But that is weird, though, isn't it? Like someone painting a picture of me.
Okay, so yeah. Why did they do that? Is it a good?
I don't know. It's amazing. I can't show you now. I really want to now, but they painted a picture of me and put it in the Archibald. I mean, that's the weirdest thing to ever happen to me. But I go on podcasts, I meet amazing people. We won a bloody award. I've never won anything in my life, and my book won an award at the AIBA Awards. Not that I don't know, not that I care what people think anymore, but it is nice to have. To work hard and someone go, you're doing all right, love. I've never really had that in my life. I've never really had a proper job. I've always kind of just bummed around. I mean, I sold jewellery on the markets, when I lived in France and lived in Australia. And I've never had an outlet, a creative outlet before. So writing and podcasting has just been everything to me. And, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, but writing's definitely going to be involved. And, I am a bit fed up of putting my face out there a bit now. I don't mind putting my voice out there, but, Instagram and feeling like you have to post, and I'm feeling like that's becoming a bit toxic for me now. So I'm trying to work out ways of how I can do less of that and be more behind the mic rather than in front of it. But I do a lot of public speaking, and we do a live show of Sober Awkward. We do a couple of shows a year. We did do one in Auckland last year, which was amazing. So it's just me plodding along from one thing to the next and thoroughly enjoying myself. We've got an amazing retreat coming up in October in Thailand. We've got 15 people coming from all over the world, where we're just having a sober holiday together. It's going to be like ice baths, and we've got a quiz night, and we've got cooking courses and boat trips, and just an opportunity for people that don't drink to connect with other people that don't drink, and there not be any alcohol anywhere anywhere near us. There's nothing in the resort. So we're just going to be in this jungle in the middle of nowhere having the best time. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm going to do those every year. Yeah, so this year we're only having 15 people while I kind of find my feet with it. But it's a beautiful spot. And next year we might open it up to a few more. So keep an eye out for that. There's a wait list for that on soberawkward.com if anyone wants to. Yeah, it'll be so fun. It's going to be... And Anita... Oh, yes. Go on.
Yeah, no, I'm taking my kids to Bali in September, but maybe next year I'll do a solo trip to Thailand with you instead.
Yeah, why not? Book it in. It's going to be so fun. And Anita, who's coming, is like one of the best quiz hosts in Melbourne. And she's like, we're doing like a sparkly, glittery night where we all dress up and do a silly quiz night and definitely do some sober dancing, which is extremely awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I've danced for the last 3 years, but
yeah,
hey.
no, yeah, it does. That is quite. Go on. Sorry, it's got a bit of a time lapse on it for some reason. Yeah.
No, that's all right. That's cool. I'm sure we'll work it out. But have you got any last minute sort of just little nuggets of that you could give somebody that was a parent that was sober curious, that is just feeling overwhelmed by the idea of quitting? Like, what would you say to somebody that was kind of maybe thinking that their drinking and parenting wasn't really mixing too well, which of course it doesn't? Any words of advice that you would give somebody?
I'd say if you were lying in bed asking yourself questions as to, you know, did I offend someone, or am I an alcoholic, or what did I do last night, or why do I keep drinking even though it's causing all this terrible anxiety? All of those questions are okay and they're worth seeking the answers for. That's all I did. That is literally it. I thought, right, I'm going to find out why. And your reasons why you drink, it's not about the alcohol. It's going to be about something else that you don't know. It could be trauma. It could be, you know, that you feel insecure. It could be because you're shy. It could be because of self-doubt. There's going to be a reason why you drink. And I didn't realize that. And a lot of people don't. It's not just to have fun or to relax.
No.
There's a reason why you want to numb out. And that took me a long time to understand. And digging into those reasons why will give you sobriety. And once you find those answers, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's why I was writing myself off every bloody Friday night, was because I was socially uncomfortable, or I didn't know who I was anymore, or, you know, there's so many reasons why. And I think one of the best things you can do is write those questions down. Like, if you're feeling like that and you're hungover, what are those questions and how can you get the answers to them? In August, in Sober Awkward, we're doing 4 episodes on... We're starting off with that in the beginning of August because it's Recovery Awareness Month in September. Like, when you wake up feeling like that, what is the first move? And I would say it's writing down those questions and then telling someone, which is just what I did. I just walked into the lounge and told my husband, and just whoever it is, you've got to pick the right person and you've got to say to them, I'm struggling. And it doesn't matter how many wines it is or how many beers it is or, you know, how often. It's not about the alcohol. It's about the fact that you're struggling and you need help. And everything I do is aligned with professional support, whether that's AA, a therapist, a psychiatrist, rehab, whatever that might be. You know, we can give you tools. We have loads of tools. We have our cuppa community. We have so many tools with Sober Awkward. But it's got to come from you, and it's got to be up to you to seek the help that works. And a lot of people go, oh, I went to a therapist and, you know, I didn't like them, so I gave up. I'm like, no, you've got to find another therapist. And then you've got to go to an AA meeting, and you've got to walk the walk and talk the talk until something works. And that might take a while, but there's nothing more satisfying than trying and going again until you find out your reasons why. And then you'll sort of trip into sobriety and be like, the sun has come up on your life. And that's how it feels. It feels like a new day every day. And there's none of this slugging around in bed and feeling like shit and wondering what you've done and who you've offended. It's so much better. And you can look forward to life again.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Was that too long?
Absolutely. It's liberating.
I don't know what I'm talking about sometimes.
No, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to my podcast. It's been amazing, Vic. I could talk to you for hours, I think, but we probably better wrap it up.
Thank you, Abby.
Um, yeah, thank you. Okay, I'll just finish off. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully, you've enjoyed my chat with Vic. I will get your contact details, Vic, and I will put those in the show notes. We've also got a resources section in my website, and the links to both of Vic's books are on that website, on my website in the resources section. So have a look at those. Yeah, next week we will have another tips and tricks short episode, and yeah, just whatever you're doing, I hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to share the podcast, share the love. I'd love for more people to be listening. It's I think we're at 500 downloads now, which is
Well done.
is huge for me. But yeah, not quite as big as Sober Awkward, but it's a work in progress. So
Well, yeah, we only had
thank you all for
500
listening.
downloads. Oh, sorry, I'm totally interrupting your exit. Go
No,
on,
you're
carry on.
not. That is fine. No, I'm just pretty proud of that. Even I got the notification the other day, so that's 500 people that have listened, and they're not all I don't have that many family, so they must be other people from around the world. So
Well done, that's amazing.
all right, Vic. Well, it's lovely to meet you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers, Abby.
All right, take care.